What's up YouTube? Your dude Sly here, and welcome back to another Sly Nation game review video. So let's talk Bungie real quick. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out to V1 Interactive and the publisher Private Division. They were kind enough to give me a copy of the game to review, and while I wish it had been a little sooner, I am definitely thankful for it nonetheless. So high five to y'all for letting me check out Disintegration on PC. Alright, so back to Bungie. As we all know, Halo was a generation-defining video game. I mean, everyone knows Halo, right? No matter who you are or where you live, if you're a gamer, then you know Halo. Hell, even flip phone-toting grandmas know the game Halo. Games were so much more simple back then, and Halo had a cool story with, at the time, groundbreaking first-person mechanics, especially graphics for a console-only game. Around the time Reach was out, a Bungie developer by the name of Marcus Lato was already years into creating the world of Disintegration. He later on helped create Destiny and its worlds, but left before the game shipped, as a lot of OG Bungie devs have done. And you can see a lot of this game within Destiny, or a lot of Destiny within Disintegration. At first, this game was built and tested as a real-time strategy game, an RTS, but they needed and wanted more action, so they ended up putting in some first-person shooter mechanics and kept a small strategy mechanic to kind of tag along with it. The main technology that is central to this game is called integration, a technology that allows users to pretty much live forever. If you wish, you can take your brain and put it into a device that allows people to move their consciousness and brain into a metal exoskeleton and then live forever, shedding their fragile organic bodies for hardened steel. Or you can take your steel frame out for a few thousand-year stroll and come back to your organic body that's waiting on ice for you. That's known as disintegration. Now the brain can, as it's called, can be swapped into any body type you wish, and while it's a choice in the beginning, the antagonist of the story believes his group are leaving humanity behind. This is the next step in evolution, and they forcefully integrate people all around the world. This group in the game is known as the Rayon. The protagonist of the campaign is a guy named Romer Scholl. Now I'll talk more about the story in a bit, but things happen and then Romer is imprisoned on a huge ship called the Iron Cloud. It somehow blows up in the very beginning, and while it's on fire, he ends up trying to escape, meets up with other escapees, they team up, stumble upon a downed ship, and in the end, end up meeting a faction called the Resistance, led by an old natural, aka human man, by the name of Wagner. The names, like the baddie of the game, an integrated dude that goes by Black Shuck, and plenty others, are pretty bad. Like, the names in this game are kind of weird. The introduction sets you up so quickly that you seemingly miss out on so much history that the game starts off with kind of a okay, like whatever kind of attitude. You really don't care what's going on because it doesn't make much sense, and what little that it does make sense, it happens so fast that it's hard to care. So you simply play on to see what happens. Besides the names, the way the story is put together is just odd. Like, it's like there was a version that was told in much greater detail, and then they end up cutting 60% of it. Anyways, moving on here, Romer Scholl and his newly formed gang of integrated frames call themselves outlaws, but the game never really gives you a clear answer as to why you and all the others are called outlaws. But you team up with the Resistance and then start to get ordering around like you've been best friends for years. It has a very awkward feel to it. The entire introduction is just weird. However, if you can look past the naming, the awkward pacing of the story, and the boring headquarters area, the story does start to pull you in, albeit after quite some time behind the monitor. Disintegration, in a gameplay point of view, has a pretty good feel to it, a great FPS feel to it, but the problem is that the trailers and everything I've read in the past are kind of misleading. Disintegration is sold as an FPS RTS combo, but it's not handheld weapons you're firing, but instead you pilot something called a grav cycle, and your weapons are mounted to it. There are multiple weapons in the game, but within the campaign, the game chooses which ones you will use, not you. While you eventually get to run the gauntlet of various weapons, it would be nice to actually feel like you are a pilot with control, and allow you to choose which weapons you're going to use out in the field. Like I mentioned, this game first started off in testing as an RTS, and I can see that side coming out heavily within the harder difficulties. On normal, which is the mode I played through, you can pretty much blast your way through most of it, but sometimes when you're kind of squeezed, you do have to employ strategies of cover, healing, and special moves from your teammates when you start to get rushed, and there are also larger enemies or bosses in front of you at the same time. Your grav cycle has usually one main weapon and then one secondary device, like a healing field or a single shot healing slug that delivers nanites to your chosen ally. These nanites, which is the game's healing technology, heal the user, but they also speed up ability cooldowns. Later in the game, you can either get 2 weapons but no healing, so it is kind of a good compromise. But again, you don't get to choose when you get healing or if you get 2 weapons. The campaign chooses for you. Each character that tags along with you on missions has a unique cooldown regulated ability attack, kind of like a super or ultimate ability, that you can use whenever you wish as long as it's cooled down. Each character only has 1 attack and it doesn't change. Different characters do different things, and a few of them are obvious favorites due to them being miles more powerful than the rest. And since you cannot choose your teammates in the campaign either, you never really know what you're going to get. While looking over websites and various interviews on the internet, they say that there's all kinds of upgrades to choose from within the game, and while it is kind of true, there are lots of upgrades, but I wouldn't really call them a choice. If you hunt for loot, upgrade chips are plentiful, and you only have 1 path to choose from in each area, so it's not like you're actually choosing which path to use, but instead unlocking them when your characters level up from XP. Since they only have 1 path per attribute, it makes choosing pretty easy as there is only 1 choice. Not to mention that you never really see your upgrades come to life. The game pretty much feels the same from start to finish. The only thing that does change are the weapons and teammates, which does give you a much needed break and change after a couple hours in. The only upgrade I really noticed that was improving, my own damage, and a few of the non-tank enemies were pretty weak at the beginning, but ended up noticeably improving from their upgrades and resistance. However, that was pretty much it. The first handful of missions are almost the exact same. You and your teammates go through taking out baddies and saving innocent bystanders, aka other outlaws, from being captured, or you rescue the ones that are captured. Now, unfortunately, the first few missions are a little dull. However, even with all of its faults, the bad names, confusing start and story, introduction, the lack of choice, terrible challenge locations, I did start to enjoy myself once I got about halfway through the campaign. The combat itself, like I mentioned, is really not that bad. It's actually pretty slick, and I always try to time my super usages, kind of combo them together to kill as many bad guys as possible at once. And eventually, I started getting into the story as well. As messed up as it was in the introduction, once you look past that and you start to lock onto things that are in play, like happening around you, you do start to become invested. And I caught myself playing 5 to 6 hours trying to see what happens next, even though the first couple hours felt like 12. The issue is, I believe, at the start of the game. The introduction is so abrupt and told so quickly without any real context that you don't care about your characters. They're pretty much dropped onto your lap, and even though the bad guy is obvious due to the red eyes, deep croaky voice, and pitch black painted exoskeleton, you don't really know why he's the bad guy, and you don't really know who's who. Like, it's really odd. And I try to keep in mind that this game was not built by a multi-million-dollar corporation, but instead by a small team of 30 trying to make an awesome story come alive within a beautiful backdrop, which is way easier said than done. In a lot of ways, this game kind of reminds me of the very first Titanfall campaign. It was a little hard to follow, extremely rushed story-wise, and it was pretty much secondary to multiplayer. That's where most people would spend their time within Titanfall, and Disintegration, at least to me, seems to be no different. However, more on that in a second. Another issue I had with Disintegration is that, you read about this large, impressive world that's waiting to be explored, and it would be impressive if you could actually explore it without getting a turnaround death border as soon as you veer off the main path. But besides that, the world does look good and the graphics are not bad at all. The gunplay is smooth, and like Titanfall, I believe this game is really here for multiplayer. And now I would love to report and review on my time in multiplayer, but after a combined 30 minutes of trying to find a lobby, I stopped trying. I waited till the next day, another 30 minutes, stopped again. After 3 days, I could not get into a single multiplayer match. The game kicks you out of matchmaking after waiting 10 minutes. So after sitting there getting frustrated for the past couple days, I just simply gave up. 3 minutes, in my opinion, is way too long sitting there to make or join a match, let alone 30. So I have to apologize, y'all, but I did try. And I'm kind of upset as the challenges and setup there is pretty nice. And the game has fun emotes, emblems, and even a Halo-style customizable badge that are all unlocked via these challenges. Now, the game does get a little bit greedy by way of microtransactions. For a new studio to put MTXs in their very first game, That's a little ballsy, and it's something I personally would have kind of tucked away and wait and see if the game became popular or not, or people actually wanted more emotes and stuff, and then I would have delivered it. Now earlier on within this video I said that the challenges sucked, but just a bit ago I said that they were cool. So let me kind of clarify this. Upon editing I went back to put this part in because it does need some explanation. Within the campaign, between missions, you slowly run around your HQ and you can talk to your teammates, or more like they deliver a few lines to you, you don't really respond back to them. But as you run around, there are these non-sentient robots that help with maintenance work. Talking to these guys, they're the ones that give you challenges to complete within the next campaign mission. So talking to them all will ensure that you find every challenge available for the next mission. But having to run around and talk to everyone between every mission just to find 2 to 3 challenges, that's what sucks. The way they hand challenges out, that's the part I hated. Otherwise, the challenges are great. I mean, they add much needed depth to the game, and in multiplayer they allow for a little peacocking, showing off emotes and other things that you acquire through game skill. Multiplayer challenges are also kicked up a notch and are embedded within rewards, so they play a much bigger role and unlock various things for you to equip on your character or team. You have different styles of clothing, non-combat add-ons for your grav cycle, emotes, badges, paints, emblems, stuff like that. And like I said, this game seems to be about multiplayer more so than the campaign. Within multiplayer, there are a few game modes you can try out, something like Control and Skulls, or you can jump into Quick Play to randomly select the mode. But for me, there was nothing quick about it. Like I mentioned, this game has its faults, there's no doubt about it, but there is a good side to it as well. It just takes a while for it to shine through, and you have to look past some of the obvious small issues. For this game to come back as a sequel or prequel, they will definitely need an overhaul. V1 will have to pull a Titanfall-like move where you can call in your grav cycle during certain parts or encounters while keeping it a true first-person shooter with various attacks like, super abilities, grenades, etc. And then be able to jump onto a grav cycle to command your teammates from above while raining down pain with a much-needed boost to damage. Like Titanfall, it would make you feel uber powerful, something that makes you want to say yes, like a grav cycle, something exciting. That will be something different, but it's going to take a lot of work. And if you check out the game, you can see a glint of something great in the works. But we're going to have to wait and see if the devs have the time, patience, and resources to be able to make something like that. Time will ultimately tell. But as for me, that's really about it, y'all. If I had to give this game a rating between 0 and 10, I'd have to give it a 6 right now. There are some things that, at least in my mind, could have been easily improved on to give the game much more choice, much needed depth, and a ton of quality of life improvements. Like I said, I can see this game becoming something awesome if they change it up and adopt a Titanfall-like kind of system and make it more of a real first-person shooter rather than a first-person grav cycle shooter, because as it stands right now, the game isn't really that great, but it was good enough to hold me in for a few hours and make me want to finish the campaign just to see what will happen. So it's not all that bad. I really wish I could have checked out multiplayer, but I had to get this review out within a certain time frame, and I tried over the span of a few days with 0 luck. So obviously something isn't working right, because I do not believe that there are less than 3 people playing this game right now. If I actually get into it within the next couple days, I will update the description box when I successfully log in to let you guys know what I think about it. But that's it, guys. I am out of here, y'all. Thank you all so much for watching and for supporting Sly Nation. If you're new to my channel, then welcome, my friend. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed my Disintegration game review. Now, I was actually excited for this game, just like I'm excited for Outriders, and I hope it doesn't end up the same way. If you wish to get in touch, business or otherwise, SlyNationGaming67@gmail.com, or find me over on Twitter or Facebook at Sly Nation Gaming on the FB. Take care, y'all, and keep those eyes open for more game review videos, as well as my Destiny 2 guides, Cyberpunk 2077 news videos, and just about anything Mass Effect. But until then, this is your dude Sly, and I'll see you all in the next one.